Hey, you. Yes, you, the listener. Before we start the show, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Producer Head only exists because of supporters like you who take this one simple action. It costs nothing and means everything to us as we continue to build this community together and bring in more and more top tier producers to share what they know directly with us. The bigger our community grows, the more we can all level up together. All right, I appreciate you. Now let's get into it. Yo, what's up? This is Toru, music producer, entrepreneur, and host of this show, Producer Head. Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with Cryptic One, the legendary hip-hop producer and artist. As a founding member of the legendary Adams family, Crypt brings decades of wisdom on personal development, artistic evolution, and the psychological aspects of creativity. His practical approach to implementing life-changing habits and facing creative challenges head-on offers invaluable guidance for producers at every stage of their journey. So no matter where you are, I'm pretty sure you're gonna find something that connects. All right, with that, please enjoy part 2 of my conversation with Cryptic One. So, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of cool. I mean, even in that, you kind of described a little bit of a system, and so I know as a big fan of James Clear and Atomic Habits, I have to ask you, because I'm also a fan, there's a particular quote that's always stuck with me from, I don't even know if it's actually in the book or if it's just something I heard him say at one point. But it's this idea that you don't rise to your potential, but that you fall to the level of your systems.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely in the book for sure.
Yeah, I mean, can you speak on that a little bit?
It's a bar. First of all, shout out to James Clear. If people are not familiar with him, it is a book that every human should read. I don't care what you're into. Atomic Habits is the name of the book. And I do not get any commission, but I've put that book in many of people's hands and bought the book for people. But with that said, like, it kind of goes back to the having a plan, having a system more specifically. Like, if you create a system or it's kind of more than like a checklist, but just a checklist is a system of sorts, which goes back to the consistency thing that we talked about, is just to kind of do the same thing over and over. You're going to see success. What success is, like, everyone has to define that themselves. But what's the first part of the quote? It's about expectations, like
Potential. Yeah, like you don't rise to your potential.
Yeah, so like, for instance, big shout out to Sidechain. So much potential, so much talent, so many people who I feel are more talented than I am musically. I listen to their stuff and I'm like, I do not comprehend how it's made. And for whatever reason, they don't have a system in place. They have all this potential, but there's a gap in the system. And this is kind of what we've been talking about this whole time, whether it be content creation or having a plan, or kind of the opposite of all of that is the link in bio as your system, right? It's not really a system. And I hate to attack that path because it's what we all see, and it doesn't work. Like, it may work for some people, but it's not as effective as people think it is. And I think artists in particular, take it personally. Like, I dropped the link in the bio and no one's clicking the link and buying my shit. My shit must suck. And then it becomes this repetitive way of beating yourself down. And the way around that is to create a system, steal a system. Like, no one needs to know where it came from. Have a plan. Have at the bare minimum a checklist that you're going to do with every release. I'm going to make 3 beat videos of me on the SP. I'm going to talk to the camera, which I know is a lot of people's sore point or fear or what have you, but fuck it, try it. Talk to the camera about the story behind one beat, the influences, and just do that same shit for every release and see what happens. And if you're consistent with this system, you get better at it. And one of the big quotes that I don't know where it originally came from, but it's in Atomic Habits, James Clear, is like, improve by 1% every day. look at where you are in a year. You know, I think we all have, to put it into something that everyone can relate to, is like health and exercise. How many of us with the new year just came up have made a New Year's resolution? I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat right. And we jump into the gym on day one and work out for an hour and wonder why we're sore as fuck and can't work out again for another 3 weeks because we try and go from 1 to like 100% like overnight. And to continue with the James Clear, I'm just going to tell one of his little stories real quick that really resonated with me. He was like, he suggests to like a 2-minute rule. Like, so you want to do a new habit, go to the gym, 2 minutes, like literally walk in the gym, work out for 2 minutes, even if it's literally 2 minutes, and leave the gym. Like, that's your plan. Do that for a while until it becomes a habit. And then guess what? You're going to want to stay there longer. And 2 minutes becomes five, five becomes 10. Eventually, you're in there for the hour that you tried to do, but you're doing this over a course of however many months. And then you're there. It's a habit. I hope that answers your question. I think I went off on, I had a lot of James Clear isms popping in my head.
You got triggered. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, it does make a lot of sense to me, man. And I think it's like the idea, like the heaviest weight at the gym is the front door.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's, the idea is sort of the same thing with any of this marketing stuff, right? Maybe there's a piece of this and you can apply it to making music, maybe just finding the time to get into the studio, maybe opening whatever it is you got to do. So it's, I guess the way that I would describe it is sort of like the New Year's resolution is a great example. And I guess it's timely. It's that like, usually those involve a really lofty, unspecific and nebulous kind of, they're usually aspirational,
Yeah.
right? And by definition, they're not things usually that you can actually achieve, right? They're more kind of general states of being. Like, I want to be healthy, right? But it's I'm going to eat better. But it's like, okay, well, what does that mean,
Yeah.
right? And so I think what you're speaking to is it's about, can you make this really explicit? If that's the end goal, if the end goal is like, I want to bench press my body weight and I haven't lifted weights in 5 years, well, I'm not going to go in day one and lift. So
Right.
how many notches down do I have to walk back that body weight till I can lift something today? And then each day, to your point, whether it's 1% or whatever it is, you increase over time. And it's not whether you ever even get there, but that you're on the path that becomes, once you're on it, and it sounds so cliche, but it's like once you start to experience something like that, you don't care as much, about like the thing, because you trust, you're like, oh, I'm just doing this,
Yep.
and that in of itself, when you really get into that, you experience flow states or you experience some kind of progress, you can feel yourself getting stronger. And that does countless things for your mental state. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah. To put it into a marketing perspective, that's what I did over the last year. Is James Clear has an app. I don't want to like plug him too much, but it's like kind of
to be clear, he's not sponsoring this podcast.
no,
but
he's
if
not.
you'd like to,
He's
give
not.
me a call.
Holla at us.
Yeah.
So he has an app that's kind of based on the book, and it's kind of about building habits. So I literally took his 2-minute rule, and I, have a thing in there that reminds me, work on marketing your music for 2 minutes every day, like literally 2 minutes. And I'll set a timer for 2 minutes. And in the mornings, first thing I do is I'll work on something marketing related for 2 minutes, whether it's like just watching a video or whatever, about marketing or drafting an email, and I'll work on it for 2 minutes. And if I feel like I don't really want to do it, I'll end it at 2 minutes and go on my day. More often than not, 2 minutes is not enough, and I keep going. And then, sometimes an hour later, I'm like, oh shit, I did a lot, and I'll stop. But bare minimum 2 minutes every single day, and I've done that for the past year. And guess what? Saw results. Like, I did more for my marketing, and it's all kind of behind the scenes stuff that I haven't put into effect yet. But like, I feel like I've done more in this past year in that space than I had the 30 years before, just because I was doing it every day. So this shit works. Shout out to James Clear once again. I think we all kind of get into that mode of like overwhelm of like this grand big idea we have and don't know where to start. We'll start with 2 minutes. There you go. Start with 2 minutes
Yeah,
every
man.
day and see what happens.
I love it, man, because it just addresses really directly like that front door issue,
Yep.
right? Like let me just get in, knowing that I can get out. You give yourself the out. And I'm just also now just randomly thinking like how funny it's like he did not write this book thinking like music producers we're gonna talk about.
Not at all.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
We were talking about Atomic Habits. What a guy. But yeah, great. I mean, I couldn't um and also, I mean, we were talking about this before when we talked about this book together. You were saying like you read it multiple times, and it wasn't until maybe the second or the third time that you were like, fuck, like I need to implement this. Like this is starting to hit and I'm gonna get it in. And so I kind of wanted to just like poke you a little bit on like repetition as a necessity, if you're gonna make lasting change.
Yeah. Specifically about the book, I read it the first time maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, and I was blown away by the concepts, but I didn't do shit. I didn't do shit. It didn't change my life at all. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is brilliant. And then I went on with my life and did things the same way. Then I read it a second time, like, holy shit, this is fucking brilliant. And then the third time I read it, and I read it differently. I read a chapter and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm just going to pick something that I want to create a habit or whatever. It's a great fucking read, and it's easy to read and easy to implement if you do it intentionally. And that's when I started to see a change in all aspects of life that I applied it to. And then I realized that it's kind of how we work as musicians anyway, right? Like, do you like, even just as a listener, do you listen to one piece of music? I'm like, okay, I got that down, and I'll never have to listen to that again. Like, no, I listen to things a million times, so why can't I read a book that's going to help me a few times? And even as far as creating music, like, you know, did you just play piano once and got it? Read a book about it and know all the chords? Cool, done. No, you fucking keep going back to it and until it becomes. I think we talked about this before. Until it becomes like part of your vocabulary and your language, and it's natural. And yeah, I think we all learn this in school. Like, it's kind of like the purpose of homework and tests. It's repeating the same thing over. Like even the ABCs. So you didn't learn it the first time you heard the song. You're like, okay, got it. Like, just I don't know why as adults we don't apply this to our lives and the things that are important to us, especially. But, do a thing once, okay. Do a thing twice, okay. Do it 100 times. See how much better you are at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Seth Godin I'm stealing this from. It says like, reading about doing something, like the only way to learn is to do it.
Yeah.
You learn by doing, and watching videos and reading books, all that stuff is helpful, And to your point, I would also like, reading, I think there's like too much emphasis maybe on like consuming like how many different types of things I consume or how many different books I read. But, if you find one that has some good things in it, then, reviewing that over and over again, is probably going to do more for you than just continuing to like stay on the surface of a number of different things,
Yeah.
I guess it becomes like, I guess what I'm saying is it kind of becomes more about like commitment to like depth, and really getting into something. And just watching a bunch of videos is a great way to like kind of get a bunch of information thrown at you and to kind of have an awareness of things, but it's not depth, right? Depth is to take some of that stuff, pause that video, and then like go
Do
that one thing that you just did, whatever it is.
Yeah. I have a direct experience with that with the Ableton Push. I bought it and I watched a shitload of videos for a year and didn't do shit. And I didn't learn shit. Like I would try and make a beat. I'm like, it's terrible. And then a year later, I was like, all right, I'm just going to fucking make a beat every day. I'm not going to watch any more fucking YouTube videos. And I made a beat every day. And then I started to figure it out. And I got better. And then I went back and watched those same videos. And I'm like, oh, that's what I need. I know what I need now because I've been doing it. And that doesn't happen without actually doing it and doing repeatedly and then watching the video again when I had a little bit more knowledge. And it's the same thing with like Atomic Habits. It's like I read it 3 years ago, blew my mind. didn't retain any of it. And then read a second time, same thing. The third time I read it with the intention of like putting it into action and trying things. And like you said, it's like until you're doing it, it doesn't mean anything. Like it's just ideas floating around in your head that are just they're not attached to anything tangible. Um, so it's not real in that sense. I will say there are some people I know who fucking read a book once and it's like they just know it. And that blows my mind. I think that's a rare thing. Um, I am definitely not that person. Like, I'm the type of person that can watch a movie 5 times and pick up different things that I missed the first 3 times.
Bruce Willis was dead the whole time.
Was he?
So, but no, I feel you, man. I mean, repetition is a huge part of it. I'm curious, like, is that something that's common for you? Have you reread several books?
No, it's something I started doing more recently. Because of a book, oddly. There was a book I read called The 5 a.m. Club, and I put that into effect starting, this was like a New Year's thing, January 1st of last year, 2024. I started waking up at 5 a.m. every day, and first thing I do would exercise for 20 minutes. Second thing I do would be journal or meditate for 20 minutes. And the third thing, which is what we're getting at, is I'd read for 20 minutes. And reading every day for 20 minutes, you wind up reading a lot of fucking books in a year.
Did you read the thing, dude? Oh my, yeah. Sorry, continue. I can't believe you're saying this right now, but continue.
Yeah. So I read so many books that year, and just that habit of I still do it every day. I read 20 minutes. Like it's just it's been a life-changing thing because I always have these books that I want to read and I'll blow through them and that's it. But I didn't run out of things to read. There's a million things to read, but I'm like, okay, now I want to reread this book. I know that I'll finish it because once I start, I'm gonna get
you have
there.
a system.
I have a system.
Yeah.
It goes back to the system. And yeah, that was a life-changing thing, and that happened last year. God, it's only been so shit. I've read Atomic Habits 3 times in a year. That's crazy.
Wow.
I've for some reason I thought it was 3 years ago. It was last year. Oh no, it was. I read Atomic Habits 2 years ago the first time, and then I guess I read it twice last year.
Twice in the last year.
Yeah.
Wow, very cool, man. Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool thing about books. I mean, like it's like a record. You know what I mean? You just put it on the shelf, and then you can have it whenever you want, and you can flip to whatever track you want. You know what I mean? It's just it is a nice thing, and I've always found that in the same way that music can change your mood. You know, words and books can too. You know, it's like you open up a book to a page where you know there's something that you like. You read it, it just changes the way that you're thinking.
Yeah.
It's really a powerful thing. And to start your day that way too in the morning is really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And also I find back to the repetition thing is that depending upon where I am in life, different parts of the book will resonate differently with me. So like things that I kind of glossed over that didn't mean shit to me a year ago, I'll read them today and like, oh, that fits exactly what I'm going through right now. So I'll pull something different from it. And I think the same thing works with music as a musician, like listening to music with the intention of like gaining something musicality from it, like listening to a song for like the bass line, like trying to figure it out, like that type of thing. Like as you get better, you hear different things and can pick up on them. So I keep relating it back to music because no one would ever think to just listen to a piece of music once. Like that's not even a thought, but a book, they'll be like, okay, I read that. And then that's it. Like put it away. Like no need to read it again. So like
that's a really cool analogy. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. As musicians, I can listen to the same song a million times. I like the 3 songs we played, I've listened to those each a million times. So why not read a book twice at least, you know?
Yeah, man, that's what's up. Yeah, I mean, it's just so funny that you say that. And I feel it's weird to bring it up, but it's like the email that I send out to the community, this week's one was literally about reading for a few minutes a day.
Oh, wow.
And like even if it's that, like how that compounds over time, you know?
Yep.
And yeah, so wow, I love that you brought that up. The last thing that I want to bring up to you, man, before we get into like the little quicker piece of this is, you know, we've talked about a lot of cool stuff in terms of just like tackling different kinds of things as an artist. I think, you know, whether it's your email marketing, your creativity, and your business kind of side of this. And I think it's like you hear all this stuff and you're like, yes, like this all makes sense. This is really cool. And maybe there's a bunch of reasons, but I think it's pretty common for people to feel fear around this, right? Like I don't, whether it's fear of posting, whether it's fear of maybe more formally creating like some kind of system around trying to collect email addresses or connect more directly with an audience. Maybe it's fears. I think it's like fear gets labeled in a lot of different ways, like on the surface level, but I think at the end of the day, it's all just fear.
Yeah.
It's just like the more direct way to say it, right? Whether it's fear of rejection or fear of failure, whatever it is, it all just becomes fear. In a lot of cases, these fears don't actually impact your well-being or your safety as a human being unless you kind of inflate them to the point where they can. So then I think it becomes about what kind of encouragement, I guess, do you have? Because I'm sure that you've been there in your own space and time and will be there again. And when you're experiencing that fear or that resistance, as some people would say, around moving forward through that, what have you found is helpful to kind of deal with those emotional, kind of irrational kind of hurdles that are self-imposed?
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, I still go through this. I think number one is kind of recognizing that the reason you're not doing something is because you're fearful of it, and admitting that to yourself is a big
Mm-hmm.
step, especially in the hip hop community where like we're all supposed to be like bravado and like I'm the greatest and like confident and all this other shit. I think that's number one. Number two, I shouldn't go number two because this feels like I have a list of things. I do not. But I think one of the best ways to battle it is some form of community of like-minded people and being open enough and vulnerable enough to like ask, like, hey man, is this any good? Like, and by community, like it sounds like it's kind of a buzzword, friends is a easier way to say community. Like, have friends that will be honest with you and that you can be honest with. And it's kind of a tricky thing because I've had friends tell me that something was like, I'm not really feeling that, but that was what I needed to hear to be like, no, fuck that. I like it.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about like listening to them and taking their word as gold, but it's just kind of like bouncing it off someone who you trust will give their honest opinion, and then you can decide from there like what your honest opinion is. Um, so I kind of think like a lot of this just leans on being true and honest with yourself, and kind of going back to what I said earlier about the fuck it point. It's at some point you have to face the fear, and go into it head on. There's a quote, not a quote, but a situation that my girlfriend went through. She's skydived. I am never going to that. I will say that. And it's something that I brought up to her, and we would talk about like I'm scared to do this or whatever, and she's like, "You look at me like I'm like this brave person." And I'm like, "You jumped out of a fucking airplane, a perfectly good airplane. Like that's brave as fuck." She's like, "I was terrified the entire time." And she's like, "It's not that I wasn't scared, it's that I did it in spite of the fear." And like that, her saying that kind of made something click with me, in that like there's never been a time ever where I have not had some fear behind a release, a post, any sort of anything that I put out publicly, a show, like every time. But something makes me get to that fuck it point. And I think that is the key to everything, is to just get out of your own way. That may look different for a lot of people in a lot of different situations, but it's again back to systems and consistency and practice and repetition. I think that's all of that kind of combines together to be the best way to overcome the fear. And you're never going to erase the fear. I think that's also kind of something that's important to note, is that it's a fear that's I kind of wonder if there are actually people who don't have those fears and hangups, because I think it looks like that way from the outside. And I would love to talk to some people who look like these super confident people, if this is like who they really are 100%, or if there's ever like a time when you're not scared. And I feel like the fear is kind of necessary because as musicians, as artists, like a large part of art is taking a risk. If you're always doing the safe thing, like, are you pushing yourself? Are you pushing musical boundaries? Like, we listened to the RJ thing earlier. He had done shit that no one's done. Like, there's got to be some like fear behind that or risk, or did he just know his shit was amazing? I'm sure it was both. You know, that's kind of, as musicians, I think that's another thing that we have to realize is that you can be super fucking confident about your shit and also scared that no one else is going to see it in the same way that you see it. And there's a moment with everything that I create when I'm creating it and I like it and I'm really sure about it and I'm in the studio by myself and I'm bopping my head and I'm standing up and I'm like rapping in my head about it and like, holy shit, this is the best thing I've ever fucking made. I can't wait for people to hear it. And then the second I start thinking about people hearing it, I'm like, wait, is this any good? And it's that fear that suddenly changes this beautiful moment into this like moment of being unsure. And I think that's just part of it. It's part of the process. It's part of my process. And I know it's part of a lot of other people's life or system or what have you. I wish it wasn't there, but I'm also glad it is there. It makes you feel alive. Like, if who wants to walk around with absolutely no fear? Like, it's the fear that if you overcome it, that makes you feel like you accomplished something.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this episode, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Remember, Producer Head grows thanks to listeners and supporters like you. So if something here resonates, take a second to let us know by following, liking, subscribing. Your support means everything. By subscribing and sharing, you help us grow the Producer Head community, which allows us to continue bringing you incredible conversations just like this one and opens the door to even more exciting guests in the future. Let's keep building this together. All right, back to the episode. I love the idea that, I mean, just to eliminate as a goal, I'm going to eliminate this fear, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible. At the very least, it's not realistic.
Right.
Right. And learning how to act in spite of it, or to coexist with it and do it anyway. I kind of think of it as like friction. You can't, without friction, there's no forward motion. You're just going to spin in place. And so in a way, it's sort of that friction to kind of give you something to push against, and that's how you're going to move forward. And I don't know, I feel like kind of what you're saying in a way is that like fear is actually not a signal of like what you should avoid, in the cases of where there's like a wild animal chasing you, sure.
Yeah.
Right. But in these cases where your actual like well-being isn't threatened or in danger, it's actually not it's not telling you where you shouldn't go, but it's telling you exactly where the opportunity is for you to experience something new and to get the next thing.
Right. Right.
And that is, I feel like what I hear you say, man.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. I think I mentioned something about perception versus reality. As much as we like to think that we know what other people are thinking, and I think social media really perpetuates this, is like when you post something and it doesn't get likes, even I definitely go through this, and you're like, shit, I was wrong. That's not as good as I thought it was. And that's just perception. Who knows? Maybe like everyone was looking at booty videos that day, and that's what the algorithm fed them, and they never even saw my shit. Like maybe if I would have put a booty in the corner, maybe it would have blown up. But like,
A/B test, man.
Yeah, there you go. But you can never know why it doesn't resonate with people. Maybe the right people didn't hear it. Maybe like everyone is out. Maybe there's just some coincidence. There was a big show and everyone's out, or everyone watching. You don't give a shit about sports, and you posted your best beat on this day of the Super Bowl, and everyone's watching the Super Bowl, and you're sitting there like, why is no one liking my post? Like people are doing other shit. So I think the perception versus reality, you can never know why something works or doesn't work, and you shouldn't really. I know I said give a shit about that, but like, don't give a shit about that. Like, as long as you like what you're doing, run with it, and then figure out who else likes it and go from there. But yeah, man, I'm just here to say that I'm scared shitless like everyone else. Like it's like my girl jumping out of the fucking plane. I'm in the plane. I'm up there. Music's done. Fuck am I gonna do? Not release it? Like, fuck it. The fuck it point. Jump out the plane.
That's what's up, man.
Hopefully the parachute opens.
With that, I got some quick hits for you before we get out of here.
Cool.
3 favorite albums.
Oh shit. It's changed. Actually I don't even remember what I picked last time. I'm gonna go with Portishead Dummy. For some reason that it came up in a conversation recently, and I started listening to it again, and yeah, it still holds up for me.
It's a certified classic.
Yeah, it's just beginning to end. It's crazy. It's nuts. Favorite albums? I'm not gonna go favorite. I'm gonna go with albums that I really like, and this is gonna sound a little narcissistic because I'm on a track on the album, but also it's winter and I've been listening to it. Is Cannibal Ox Cold Vein. There was magic in a bottle caught in that album. I mean, I was there for some of it, but when I was hearing like the demos that they were recording, I knew it was gonna be good. But had you told me I'd be listening to it 20 some odd years later still, and still kind of, it still feels like it's from the future to me. Um, yeah, it's a special album that I can't say that about many albums from that era of hip hop that I was involved in. I'm not listening to 99% of them today, even though there's still like a place in my heart for them. But this one to me stands the test of time. And let's go with all right, here's one that's important to me. I wouldn't say it's a favorite, but it changed my perspective of hip hop. I was there when it came out, and that's De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising. I guess people wouldn't know the history as much as someone who was old enough to be there. But like when that album came out, number one, it invented skits and on records like that wasn't a thing before that. The whole album kind of tells a story, and the sampling was like the first time that people kind of went outside of the usual genres of that people sampled, which was like soul and funk and not so much jazz yet. Tribe kind of did the jazz thing, but like they were sampling weird like Disney records and just French speaking language records and like weird shit. And kudos to Prince Paul for like thinking outside of the sampling box that with that album. That album really changed the way I perceived hip hop. And I related to it because they were weird kids from Long Island, and I was a weird kid living on Long Island at the time. And it kind of gave me the okay to be weird in the hip hop space, and which I think was very freeing for me. And it came out in '89. I started making music in '89. Oddly, I got my first sampler in '89, and it kind of changed my trajectory. In it didn't change who I was. It made me more comfortable with being who I was in hip hop, as opposed to trying to be like this hard, MC.
Wow. Can you give a higher compliment to a record than that? I don't know. Wow. That's
Yeah, no, it just gave me permission to be myself and
yeah.
and be as weird as I wanted to be, and not have to like fit into the mold that was presented. Although I will say I bit their fucking style a bunch. So so um yeah. But like I always say, when you're first starting out, mimicry is the way to go.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna go back and revisit because I'm reading the Dante Ross memoir
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And it's at the point where he's like kind of starting A&R for them. So it's got me like, man, I just like between this conversation and reading this book, I gotta go back and just listen to all this shit.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
He was around for a lot of the big ones, man. Like,
bro, I mean, I've listened to he was on the Questlove podcast years ago, and
did you listen to
I can
the other podcast he was on, the Open Mike Eagle one?
oh no.
Yeah,
He was he did Open Mike Eagles,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I like that guy's podcast too. I haven't listened to that in a
yeah.
while. Uh,
It's like a 5 or 6 episode arc of Dante Ross just going through all the records he was involved with.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to go listen to that on Open Mike Eagle. And I'll link that here for people too in case they're interested. But I also heard him on the Questlove too, man. Like that's the first time I really heard a long conversation with him. He and that, I mean, Questlove obviously being the guy that he is, was had a great conversation with him.
Yeah.
And had, it's just always a cool that podcast, and like the questions, he's always well prepared for it. And also randomly turns out he's friends with Brian Koppelman. He was on Brian Koppelman's podcast also. Brian Koppelman is the guy who wrote Rounders, like Billions, like and yeah, man, and like it was I never would have expected, but the two of them are like friends and kind of worked in music together for a while. So that also ended up being a really cool conversation, very different one, but also like, so when this book came out, I was like, damn, I need to read about this guy.
Yeah, shit. I didn't know there was a book. I need to check that out.
Yeah, I think it came out I think it came out last year.
Okay.
So it's relatively new. One of my buddies, the same, yeah, he told me he listened to it, I think, and he was like, you got to check this out. So it was on my list already. That helped push me over the edge for sure. All right, best music related purchase you've ever made for $100 or less.
Ooh, $100 or less. Shit, I spent way too much money. I'm looking around here for gear. Like there's nothing here that's $100 or less. Here's one. Big Daddy Kane, Long Live the Kane cassette.
Wow.
That is what made me want to rap. Not 100% true. I
that.
wanted to rap before that, but that was the one that showed me that there was a whole different level of rapping that I was not aware was possible. I bought it at Tower Records with my own money. I went in there, scraped together, like, I don't know what made me buy it. I had heard some of the stuff on the radio, so I knew it, but I didn't even know it was Big Daddy Kane. I didn't know. I wasn't sure, but there's just something about, they didn't have a hip hop section at Tower Records. This is how, like, hip hop was then. And I was just in, I think they called it an urban section where they grouped like R&B and hip hop and I think house together. And it was on like kind of the new release rack. And I just looked at it. He just looked to me, he's sitting in a throne with like these hot chicks around him and a big gold chain and flat top. I'm like, damn, that dude looks cool. All right, I got enough for one tape. I'm going to buy that. Yeah. Left, put it in my Walkman. It was Tower Records in the city. We were visiting my grandparents and my parents were driving us home. Put it in my Walkman, listened to that on the car ride home. And I got home and I listened to it again and I just got my pen and pad out and I like transcribed one of his verses by hand on paper. Wow. And I studied it. And I just studied it. And like that was like kind of a key for me to like learn to rap on a different level. So yeah, that was a good purchase.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's such a cool story. Wow. Yeah, it's like, yeah, maybe you're interested in this if you're willing to sit down and write down a rap verse.
Right.
Also, man, like to say like you bought it based on the cover. So again, like I know we've been like really hammering this, but just the marketing piece, you know what I mean? Like allow your creativity to shine through in the visual pieces as well in the presentation of it in other forms. Because
yeah, you never know what's gonna pull someone in. It's not just the music. That's what we all like to kind of believe that it is, just the music, but it's not always that.
Yeah, man, it's a fucking person, you know?
Yeah. It's like, he's cool. I want to be that cool. How do I be that cool? Maybe this tape has the formula.
This tape has the answers,
you know.
One habit that gets in the way of your music.
Procrastination is probably the number one, which... Shout out to James Clear. He's helped a lot with that. But it still kind of rears its head every day. You know, there's always something I wanted to get done today that, you know, I still find myself sitting watching something on Netflix when I know I should be doing something else. You know, it's constant battle. I think it was important for me to realize that it's a battle, like a lot of these things that we talked about, battle with fear. You look at it like you're one day going to win. You know, like there's no victory. Like you can do what you can. And I think the important thing that we didn't touch on is when you don't do what you're supposed to do, don't beat yourself up about it, you know, or try not to, because it's part of human existence. Like as much as I do beat myself up often, but I try and remind myself not to. Mm-hmm. You need breaks from everything, even from music. Like it's very important to just sit on the couch and do nothing. That's sometimes equally as important as sitting in here and finger drumming practice, you know?
Yeah.
Like the time away from it is necessary.
I mean, I'm really glad you brought that piece up. Yeah, because I'm surprised we didn't touch on that for some balance and to be like, we are saying like these are things that you can build and systems you can do, but it's not meant to kind of ignore the fact that, we're people, and that we can't just run like machines.
Yeah.
And that you set these things knowing full well that there's going to be days where you don't get to the gym or you don't get into the studio and you don't give up. I think one of those to that end, I will say like one of those concepts from that book I love that really stuck with me too is like the no zeros, right? So the idea of like if your usual thing is like I go to the gym for an hour, right? But something came up, and so if you can only go and it's like you said for 10 minutes, half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever,
Just
that's
show
better
up.
than not going at all,
Yep.
right? And so the idea of that like if you can't have it the way you drew it up in your mind under ideal circumstances, don't hold on to that too tightly because if you're waiting for ideal circumstances, you're going to be waiting a long time. And like and that's the thing is like we're always working with like kind of suboptimal circumstances and conditions, and that becomes kind of the fun part. It's like, well, how do I do the best I can with what I have and what's available to me?
Yeah. And to add
So
one
I'm
more,
so glad you brought that up.
add one more James Clear ism in there. There's part of the book where he's like, if you don't show up that day, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't do it twice in a row because then you're starting to build the habit of not doing the thing. So don't beat yourself up about missing one day, but the next day you better do it for 2 minutes at least, So that's something that I try and live by with anything I'm doing. Like, the marketing thing that I said I do for 2 minutes every day. I've missed some fucking days, but I try not to miss 2 in a row.
It's so funny, bro. I feel like we're just giving a TED talk
Right.
about habits.
Yeah, this is what it is. That book is fucking life changing. Go check it out, and maybe we should have like a Amazon affiliate link so you can get paid from people that check it out.
I mean, the full nerd part of me, I would love to like be able to talk to that guy and have him want to be amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be so cool.
Yeah, I actually looked up his speaking fees. It's out of our range.
Absurd.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, he's crazy, man. But hey, who knows? Maybe one day we'll get there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Something you wish more people understood about music production or music in general.
It's never finished. Meaning that you never get to a point. Well, I never get to a point, and I don't see it that you're done learning or improving, or you just get to this magical point where you know it all and you stop growing. Shout out to Stolen Drums. I'm going to bring him up again. Like when I first came across him, you look at what he was doing then on those live streams, whether it was with Ableton or the MPC. And now you look at his live streams where he's got all these fucking instruments and he's learned to play bass and play keys on a pretty fucking high level and drums on a high level. He didn't have any of that shit when we started a few years ago. And like, he was making amazing stuff back then.
Yeah. The forever student thing is really cool. I mean, I love his evolution.
Yeah.
Is really inspiring because it's like he's just pursuing what he wants to do, you know what I mean, and what's interesting to him. And I think it seems like from the outside, I mean, I definitely don't mean to speak for him, and that's not what I'm trying to do here, but from watching him, it just seems like his interest and what he became curious about evolved over time with music and how to go about answering the questions that he had in his head. And he doesn't seem to and he just seems to be okay with like
just going there.
Yeah, like like I used to make this shit, now I make this shit, you know what I mean? But it's still and it's like if you've been listening, there's still, you can see the connection between all
of
it.
For sure. It still sounds like him. It's just very different. And
yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, it takes a certain level of bravery to have this constant evolution. But I also think that's kind of just how it should be. Like I listen to my catalog sometimes, and I listen to where I came from to where I am, and it's, I don't want to say better or worse, but it's certainly different. And sometimes I get a little self-conscious about that. Like are the people who dug my stuff in 1996 really going to listen to the shit I'm doing now? And are the people who like my shit in 2025, do they give a shit about my 1996 thing?
Mm.
And anyone else worrying about that, I would tell them, what the fuck are you wasting your time worrying about that shit for? Just make the shit that you make and then figure it out, But yeah, hope that answered that.
No, for sure, man. I mean, really, yeah. I mean, I think it's a cool. I think for anybody who's in a spot where they feel like they're on a plateau or they're frustrated with what they got going on, musically or whatever. It's like I think it's an important reminder. It's like your ability is a dynamic thing, and it can change, and you can decide to work on those things. So, and I don't mean to downplay and that it's easy, but I do just mean to simplify it in the sense that it's a decision, you decide to do it. And so find a way to make it interesting or fun to you so that, it's like, don't force yourself to read Atomic Habits if it's not interesting
Right,
to you,
right.
but there's probably something out there that is. Read that, you know what I mean? And I think that's a thing. And so if you're not happy about the way your mix sounds or your drums, figure out a way to get in there and game that up so that you can shift the way that it sounds and the way that it feels.
Exactly.
Someone else you'd like to hear from on Producer Head?
Shit, we talked about him. RJ. That'd be fascinating discussion.
That would be amazing. I would have to really play it cool. RJ2 on the show.
That would be. I don't think I've ever seen him interviewed like in a space by a producer who could ask the questions that I think we would want to hear. You know what I mean? Maybe he has. I don't know. Now I'm gonna go down a RJ interview rabbit hole. See if
that's a good question. Man, that's such a good call. After all that we've been talking about him, favorite movie.
I'm pretty sure I answered this last time, so I'm gonna switch up the movie. Won't say my favorite, but let's go with I love the movie Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I like Guy Ritchie. He's clever, funny, and unique.
Yeah, I feel you. What character from a book, movie, or show do you most identify with?
Ooh. Most identify with. Shit. That is a tough one. Okay, let's go with Jules from Pulp Fiction. I just want to walk the earth, man.
Wow.
Yeah, like that ending quote kind of really speaks to me. Oddly, I just sampled it for a song that on my next album.
Yeah, man. Well, Pulp Fiction. I haven't watched that in a while. I need to go back. That's definitely one of my favorites, if not mine. Okay. Best advice that you've ever received?
It's kind of funny. I just I want to say tweeted, but I just threaded. Is that a verb? Threaded? Because I don't
it is
Twitter.
Now.
Yeah, I threaded about that recently. Not the best advice, but just kind of advice that I've received. That it's not the gear, it's the artist behind the gear. Often forget that, and my bank account suffers for it. But yeah, it frustrates me to see like a lot of the same artists that we talked about who are super talented and wondering why they're not selling their music, and they spend a lot of money on gear but won't spend any money marketing their stuff. That's a frustration I see. And it's just because I want everyone to win. Can we just talk about that for 1 second? Like, this is unrelated, but everybody can win. Like, I think we forget, especially me with a hip hop background, and they make it competition. Like, why am I not doing as well as them? Like, as if there's only enough space for us, one person, to do well. And like, everybody can win. And I think that's why I've become a lot more open with like advice and suggestions, and like people will DM me and ask me questions and shit, and I'm always willing to help because there's no like competition. I came from a space where it was very competitive, like as a DJ, right? You DJ a party and you play a record, and you'd see another DJ kind of creeping up, seeing what the record is, and you cover it or you black out the labels, and then back into sampling. Sorry, my dog is like tangled in cables right now. You do this. She does this every time. She goes under my desk. I gotta work on my cable management for my dog's health. But yeah, even sampling, like the sample hiding, like I would never, ever for years tell anyone what I sample. I'd lie sometimes. They're like, oh, what was that sample you used? I'd just make something up because I didn't want to share it because there was a period where you kind of felt like that was what defined you as a producer. Like your sample, now I don't give a shit. I'll tell you what I sampled. I'll give you the sample. Try and make the same beat as me. It's not going to happen. Like we all do things differently. So I think the competitive nature of producers and hip hop is kind of baked in, but we can all win. And fuck, promoting Stolen Drums so much, but like he's like the perfect example of like what taught me that like you don't have to gatekeep all these techniques and things. You can give away all the sauce, and people are gonna make different dishes with it. You know?
100%,
Yeah,
man. I mean, yeah, it's like kind of that scarcity abundance kind of dichotomy, right? And so yeah, and I agree, man. And yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. Also, I mean, it's just there's space for everybody to get a piece, man.
yeah,
You know,
for sure.
and because there are other people doing something doesn't mean that you can't also do it. You know what I mean? It's interesting. You know, it's like because we're all the same, but we're all unique, and if each of us kind of puts in our thing, like we all speak to just a slightly different person in a different kind of way. You know, and I think that's the thing you start to learn as an independent musician a little bit.
For sure.
All right, man. So we started a new little thing that I want to try. You're going to be both the first and the second person to do this, but I would like you to leave a question for the next person, not knowing who they're going to be, that I will ask them on the next episode.
Give me a second. Give me a second.
Yeah, take
I
your
don't
time.
want to ask anything about influences or favorite this, which feel like that's just like cheating. Here's one. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to the younger version of yourself that was thinking about not starting making music, but started making music for people to hear? What advice would you give them? Basically, kind of like delve into like the mistakes you made, I guess. What would you tell them to avoid some pain, fear, hurt, that sort of thing? To tie it into the fear factor.
Mm. To kind of avoid unnecessary pain and mistakes, that sort of thing.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And the previous guest left a question for you. You're going to
Oh,
be the first one to answer
shit.
this. So thank you for doing it. Here it is. What would it take for you to stop making music?
Probably death. Like that's it. I stopped making music for about 5 years, and it was literally I call it my dark period where I was depressed and miserable, and it's the worst 5 years of my life. And during those 5 years, I didn't make the connection that there was this big gaping hole where music was.
Hmm.
Um, and then I started making music again, and suddenly, not suddenly, but like I started to be less depressed, and I started to like it was really a moment where I realized that this shit it's more than a hobby or a career or whatever. It's therapeutic. It's part of me, and it's like breathing. Like I can't even picture not doing it. It's not even I when I stopped doing it, it was a very purposeful. I was angry at music um, because of business shit that was happening or not happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I just said, "Fuck it. This shit is the cause of 95% of the stress in my life. Why am I doing this shit?" And then I realized it was the music business that was causing that, and by business I don't mean like independent. It was like industry shit that was happening that was kind of out of my control that made me like to not delve into it too much because this is going to be like a 10-hour podcast. Um, but I was so mad at music that I stopped listening to music. Like I didn't even listen to music for like probably 2 years. I watch a lot of movies and like cooking shows, but I cut off that part of me, and I was miserable. Yeah, man. Like yeah, death. That's it. Like I can't even if like I got really sick, I'd still be doing it on some level. Like I can't not do it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how you were going to answer that question, but wow, I mean, that's sort of a mic drop. I don't know if like there's really any better way to answer that. I mean, man, that's all I have, man. Is there anything in terms of where to send people? Crip_Uno
Yep.
at IG.
IG and Threads. Those are my places where I'm active these days. The website is cryptic1.net. Currently, it's just a store. But yeah, you could check out the store and buy shit. I don't mind that.
Where do they go to give you their email address?
The easiest way, go to cryptic1.net. You'll see where to sign up for my email list.
Cool.
Just to kind of plug the email list, like I mentioned earlier, it's all about value. You will see some kind of markety, like, hey, I just dropped this out, or the store has a discount on this, or whatever. You'll see some of that, but 90% of the email is going to be my whole thought process is I want to give people things. It's various things. It could be like peeks into old music of mine. It could be drum sounds. It could be advice. It could be marketing tips. It could be anything, but there's not going to be an email where I'm not providing you something for free. So hit me up.
There we go, man. Practicing what we preach here on the show.
Try.
We love to see it.
And I try not to quote James Clear in every email.
Bro, I mean, I can't thank you enough, man. I know we've been on here for a minute, so thanks for sharing your time. And,
of course, man.
And just the relentless optimism, positivity, and willingness to share and help other people move forward is not lost on us. Thank you so much, man.
Man, appreciate it. And I'll see you in next year when we do it again, hopefully.
Yes, sir. Well, hopefully sooner than that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm always down.
You're welcome here anytime, man. Everybody, this has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. This concludes another episode of Producer Head. We'll catch you next time. Peace. That's it for my conversation with Cryptic One. His insights on creating effective systems, building consistent habits, and facing creative fears have left me with ideas and challenges to update the way that I work. If you haven't already, make sure to check out part 1, where we dive deep into marketing strategies and the long game in music production. It is essential listening for anybody in this music production game. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. This helps Producer Head find its place and its people. Without you, there is no Producer Head. Thanks again for tuning into Producer Head. Subscribe and join our community over at producerhead.substack.com so you never miss an episode. Substack subscribers receive exclusive access to the biweekly podium, the curation of my favorite discoveries on and offline over the past week. You'll also get access to Producer Head Bars, where I share the best of what's been shared with me to help you and other producers in our community grow. The podium and Producer Head Bars are designed to provide immediate inspiration